This is Evangelist Henry Walker. Welcome to the podcast. Today, I want to continue a message from the last podcast, to which many people responded. Could the rapture happen during this Christmas season, December 25th to January 1st? This is part 2. But let's go to the Father in prayer first. Father, I thank you for another opportunity to minister to your people, Father. I ask you to use me just the way you want, Father. Let me say only what you want me to say, nothing more and nothing less. Help people, Father, to open up their spirits and not only receive the word, but study the word for themselves. And Father, we give you all the praise and the honor, Father, in the mighty name of Yahshua, by the blood of Yahshua. Just a review from the last podcast. We talked about 3 times in the word, it mentions the word ho, H-O. And we know that Satan is not an originalist. He always copies. So Satan tried to have his Santa Claus junk saying ho, ho, ho. Again, 3 times in the word it says ho. It's about Jesus, Yeshua's bride, escaping, going somewhere. In Ruth chapter 4, verse 1, ho is used. And it talks about Boaz going to the gate to claim Ruth as his bride, being the second kinsman. And the first kinsman said no, so he claimed Ruth as his bride. So going to the gate. We talked in Revelation chapter 21, verse 12, that there are 12 gates for the 12 tribes of Israel. And we're going to walk through one of those gates. We're all going to go through the gate of Judah, because Jesus, Yeshua, is of the tribe of Judah. He's a lion of the tribe of Judah. And Isaiah 55, verse 1 says, come to the waters and drink. Revelation 22, verse 1 talks about the river of living water flowing from the throne. And Revelation 7, verse 9 to 17 talks about us being around the throne, worshiping the Father. So again, it's Ruth 4, verse 1, Revelation 21, verse 2, Isaiah 55, verse 1, Revelation 22, verse 1, Revelation 7, verse 9 to 17, Zechariah 2, verse 2 to 6. Zechariah 2, verse 2 to 6 is the third example where ho is mentioned. And it talks about an angel measuring the temple in New Jerusalem. And Revelation 11, verse 1 and 2 talks about measuring the temple in New Jerusalem. And that temple is being prepared for us. And Matthew 24, verse 31 also mentions that he'll gather his elect from the 4 winds. And Zechariah talks about those 4 winds too, in verse 2, in chapter 2, verse 2 to 6. So to summarize, the 3 examples of the word ho and Matthew 24, verse 31, Jesus, Yeshua, will gather his elect from the 4 winds to go to the gate in heaven and come to the living waters flowing from the throne in New Jerusalem, which is being measured for us. And we will stand before the throne, worshiping Jesus, Yeshua. And we talked about the 3 woes, W-O-E, in Revelation. If you turn me to the book of Revelation, Revelation chapter 8, verse 13. And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, woe, woe, woe. There's the 3 woes. The woes are mentioned during the tribulation time. So the Father's saying, ho, 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 get ready for the rapture. But those who miss the rapture will have to go through the woes. Woe, woe, woe. He said, woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the 3 angels which are yet to sound. And this is the first woe, in chapter 9, verse 1. And the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. In verse 12 it says, one woe was past, and behold, there come 2 other woes, more hereafter. Then it talked about the army of 200 million men as the second woe coming to destroy. In chapter 11, verse 14 and 19, it talks about the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh, and that's when the nation's going to suffer the wrath of the Father. Also in that same chapter 11, verse 10, and they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwell on the earth. There's a time of merrymaking. So we can see that the Father wants to take his bride home before those three woes, before the events in Revelation, before that great tribulation. Go with me to the Gospel of Luke chapter 2. We also talked on the last podcast how the Father has his feast days in Leviticus 23. And one of the feast days is Passover, and then 7 days of unleavened bread, or 8 days. And we talked about Yahshua being born on Passover, as recorded in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 2. So again, you had Passover and 7 days of unleavened bread. In verse 41, Luke chapter 2, now his parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of Passover. The first day of unleavened bread, they had to be in the temple in Jerusalem, and the last day of unleavened bread, they had to be in the temple of Jerusalem. In verse 42, and when he was 12 years old, if you go back to the Greek, it says when he became 12 years old. That was his birthday. They went up to Jerusalem after the custom of the feast to be in the temple on the first day of unleavened bread. Then while they're there, they looked for Jesus, Yahshua, and he wasn't there. They traveled a day's journey back to their family to find him. And they couldn't find him, and they found him in the temple, teaching people in the temple. In verse 21, it was custom for the male child to be circumcised 8 days after being born. So in verse 21, and when 8 days were accomplished for the circumcising of the child, his name was called Jesus, Yahshua, which was so named of the angel before he was conceived in the womb. So here's Mary and Joseph taking Jesus, Yahshua, on the last day of unleavened bread to the temple to be circumcised. So Yahshua fulfilled Passover by being born on Passover, dying on Passover, and being circumcised on the last day of unleavened bread. He fulfilled the feast of unleavened bread. Besides being sinless, unleavened is a type of sin. And we talked about how the wise men from Matthew chapter 2 saw Jesus, Yahshua, as a young child when he was about 2 years old. So go with me to 1 Kings chapter 19. Remember, this time of year, there's so much drinking, so much carrying on, which has nothing to do with the birth of Yahshua. Remember, you may not know that Halloween, October 31st, Christmas, December 25th, January 1st, and May 1st are satanic high holy days where he wants to kill children. What better season for him? It seems to have people out there shopping in the malls and trying to get a bargain for this, a bargain for this. And the Father forbid, take their hands off their children and start reaching out for something else, that the kids are abducted. It's such a dangerous season for some people who are not sold out to the Father. And we talked in Jeremiah 10 about cutting a tree down, bringing it in to the house, decorating it with gold and silver. Christmas is celebrating the birth of the sun god, Mithras. And the balls on the tree refer to the sun. It all started with the Feast of Saturnalia, a pagan feast that carried right through from December 25th to January 1st. We talked about how a person who celebrates Christmas is bringing Satan into their house, and they're giving place to the devil. Ephesians 4, verse 26 and 27. It's important to keep that junk out of your house. Because indirectly, people are saying that Jesus is born on the 25th. They're actually saying that he is the sun god, when in reality he was born on Passover, which is March, April. And we talked about how the sheep only give birth to lambs in the springtime. Jesus, Yahshua, is the Lamb of the Father. Yahshua was born on Passover in March, April, Nisan 14. Born on Nisan 14, died on Nisan 14. Exactly 32 years old. 1 Kings chapter 19. 1 Kings is right after Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings chapter 19. Here's a situation where Elijah is running away from Jezebel. He's afraid. He's hiding out. And the Father says, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" In verse 14, Elijah said, "I have been very jealous For Yahweh Elohim of hosts, because the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and slain your prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away. Verse 18, the father said to Elijah, Yet I have left me 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which have not kissed him. So chapter 20, Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, is getting ready to attack. And the father has 7,000 young men of Israel going against Ben-Hadad and his army at night, and they're all drunk. How much drunkenness is happening during this holiday season, leading up to and including January 1st? The 7,000 young men defeated Ben-Hadad and the Syrians at night while they were drunk. These are the 7,000 that the father told Elijah had not bowed their knees to Baal. Go to the left of Exodus 32. Right after Genesis, Exodus 32. How many bad things happened during this holiday with people who never drank, you know? How much drinking is going around this season right now? Exodus chapter 32. See, the people saw that Moses was up in the mountain and he was delayed, and they were scared. In verse 2, and Aaron said unto them, Break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. How much money is being wasted during the season? Or it could be helping, feeding the poor. But it's all about self, what I can get for myself. My kids have to keep up with the other kids. So what they get, I have to get for them. Credit card purchases. They spend money which they don't have. This is not of the Father. In verse 4, and received all this gold at their hand, and fashioned it with a graven tool, and after they had made it a molten calf, and they said, These be your gods, O Israel, which brought you out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it, this golden calf. And Aaron made proclamation and said, Tomorrow is the feast to this Yahweh, this golden calf. And they rose up early on the morrow and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and to drink and rose up to play. It's all with the drinking, with the carrying on. And these 3,000 who did this were killed by the Levites at the command of Moses, at the command of the Father. Go with me to the Gospel of Luke. Luke chapter 21. And so people say this season feels so good. There's so much joy going around. It's because Satan takes some of his power off during the season to distract from Hanukkah, which is the Feast of Dedication, which he talked about, where Yahshua kept the Feast of Dedication and proclaimed that he is the Father manifested in flesh. And John chapter 10, verse 22 on. This ministry, we go back to the feast days. We go back to our roots in Yahshua only. We don't go back to Jewish customs and washings and the 600 and so commandments they can't keep. We go back to what Yahshua taught the apostles and what the apostles taught others. And we celebrate the feast days, not the way the Jews do. We celebrate every feast day with the emphasis on Jesus, Yahshua. And this season, this Christmas season, is to take the focus off of the Feast of Dedication, Hanukkah, again, which is the feast that Yahshua kept. Luke chapter 21, in verse 34, and take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and cares of this life, and so that day comes upon you unawares. For as a snare shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Watch you therefore, and pray always that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. What a season for Yahshua to come back. I'm not prognosticating, but he could. It's when people are so distracted by so many worldly things that they miss the rapture. It's the spirit of wrong focus. Don't get caught up in it. Get rid of all that stuff in your house with the Christmas decorations and such. Keep Satan out of your house. Let's go back to Matthew 24. To the left, Matthew 24. In verse 36. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark. And they didn't know until the flood came and took them all away. so also shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken, and the other left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken, and the other left. Watch therefore, you know not what hour Jesus, Yahshua, doth come. Chapter 25, it talks about the 5 virgins were wise and 5 were foolish. 5 had oil, 5 didn't. And verse 6, at midnight there was a cry made, behold, the bridegroom cometh, go out to meet him. He could come back at midnight, but midnight is different in different parts of the world, different times in different parts of the world. So nobody knows the day or the hour. But the season could be very precarious for so many people who have their attention on worldly stuff. As I mentioned, how many people go to hospitals and pray for people, but during a 2-week period of time, most people are on vacation. What kind of employer would want his employees to all go on vacation at the same time? How about these people in the hospitals that are looking forward to somebody coming and praying with them? They're very sick. And then most of the people are on a 2-week vacation at the same time. It's just a plan of the enemy to infiltrate the plans that the Father has for so many people. In verse 9, the 5 foolish virgins wanted oil, but the wise answered, say, not so, lest it be not enough for us and you, but go you rather to them that sell and buy for yourselves. How much buying and selling? How much wasted money, again, that could be given to the poor is spent during this Christmas season, which is really Saturnalia, a pagan holiday. And the early church made it a Christian holiday. Tried to turn a pagan holiday into a Christian holiday. That only happened around the 4th century. But go to the book of Romans with me. Go to the right. Romans chapter 12. See, it's Satan's plan to get the attention off Yahshua onto self. What can I do for myself? There's nothing wrong with people buying for themselves, but just think of the power of Satan to have billions of people to get a present for somebody else before December 25th. Look at the power. So many people don't realize the power that Satan has. That's why it takes a total surrender to the Father. And if you haven't, just say, Father, I surrender everything to you. Come into my spirit. Fill me with your spirit. Mortify the deeds of my flesh. Every day make me more and more like Jesus, Yahshua. Bring the fruit of the Spirit out of my life. Love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. And when you say that prayer from your heart, from your spirit, then he puts you on a sanctification process. And every day he works on us, making us more and more like Jesus, Yahshua. Again, it's a spirit of wrong focus around this season, the focus on self. And we talked on the last podcast about in Isaiah 53, where the prophecy of Yahshua hanging up there for us, as I mentioned, and how he gave spoils to us on his birthday. And how we can enlarge the place of our tent. We can let them stretch forth the curtains of our habitations. We can spare not, lengthen our cords, and strengthen our stakes. For we shall break forth on the right hand and on the left. Isaiah 53 and then Isaiah 54, starting in verse 1. This is what he did on Passover, his birthday. He died on Passover for us. Romans chapter 12, verse 1. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of the Father, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, set apart, acceptable unto the Father, which is your reasonable service, and be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of the Father. It's all a false peace during this time. Again, it's Satan taking some of his pressure off, so it seems like there's some peace. Because he's trying to block people's eyes from who Jesus Yahshua really is on the Feast of Dedication, Hanukkah, and taking eyes off himself and onto him. And also how much wine, beer, and alcohol is drunk. Keep the beer, wine, and alcohol out of your house. You're bringing spirits into your house. Even liquor stores talk about beer, wine, and spirits. The devil's letting you know that you're bringing spirits into your house, into your body. Talking about wine, I have a message on my website, henrywalker.org, a written message, that wine is a mocker. And also I have a message on my website about when was Yahshua born, when did he die, when did he rise. He eliminates 3 holidays in that one message. He eliminates Good Friday, Easter, and Christmas. But wine is a mocker. It talks You can maybe just write this down in 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 15 and 16. 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 15 and 16. Hannah, the mother of Samuel, is accused of being drunk with wine and strong drink, and she says that she's not a daughter of Belial of Satan. It seems to indicate drinking wine or strong drink was typical of a son or a daughter of Belial of Satan. So remember in Luke chapter 9, verse 56, Luke chapter 9, verse 56, it says Yahshua came not to destroy men's lives, but to save men's lives. So in those days, what they used to do is squeeze the grapes, take the liquid, and boil the liquid, and make the liquid into a gel. And they put that gel in a new wineskin so it would not ferment. And when they wanted a drink, they would squeeze the gel out of the wineskin and add water. That's what Yahshua did on the wedding feast of Cana. He made the gel and said, now you fill the pots with water. In those days, the wedding feast lasted 3 or 4 days, and they were drunk to begin with at that time. Yeshua's not going to give them intoxicating wine to make them even more drunk, which would hurt their bodies. See, the word for wine in the Old Testament and the New Testament, in the Hebrew and the Greek, it's the same word for intoxicating wine and non-intoxicating wine, or grape juice. In the Old Testament is the word Y-A-Y-I-N, yayin. In the New Testament, the Greek is onios, O-I-N-O-S. Actually, they use the word Y-A-Y-I-N, yayin, calling the grapes on the tree wine. In Lamentations 2, verse 12, Lamentations 2, verse 12, it says that the children are crying out for corn and wine. That's not intoxicating wine, it's grape juice. Noah's daughter's getting him drunk on wine. That's intoxicating wine. You have to read what the Father is speaking about in the Scriptures. They called Jesus, Yahshua, a wine bibber. John the Baptist was accused of being demon-possessed because he stayed alone in the wilderness. Yahshua was called a glutton and a wine bibber because he sat and ate with sinners. Both accusations were groundless. In Proverbs 23, verse 29 to 32, Proverbs 23, verse 29 to 32, saying wine bites like a serpent and stings like an adder. Wine bites like a serpent and stings like an adder. Now, Yeshua said in Matthew 26, verse 29, that he will not drink of the fruit of the vine anymore at that Passover supper. He didn't say wine. He wouldn't drink of the fruit of the vine anymore. This is a heavenly wine that he did at the wedding feast at Cana. Again, he didn't want to give him intoxicating wine because he would be morally accountable for prolonging and increasing their intoxication. This would only serve to sanction excessive drinking of alcoholic beverages. It would destroy the sinlessness of his nature and teachings. Go to the book of Proverbs with me. Proverbs 20. Right after Psalms. Proverbs. Again, talking about what happens during this Christmas season, December 25th to January 1st, and just wine in general. The wine, it damages the brain cells. According to the Daily Mail in the UK, wine damages brain cells. It affects the hippocampus, Hippocampus, Hippocampus. That's the part of the brain that's associated with memory. How many ministers drink wine, man, and they want the Father to use them to help the people? And the minds are being blocked. The minds are being affected and putting up a barrier to what the Father wants to minister to the people through that minister. So believers should not be drinking wine for one of the main reasons that'll distort what the Father is trying to say to other people through you. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 1 said, wine is a mocker and strong drink is raging. Wine is in the same category as strong drink. And wine could lead to strong drink. And whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. In Proverbs 23, verse 29, who had woe? Who had sorrow? Who had contentions? Who had babbling? Who had wounds without cause? Who had redness of eyes? They that tarried long at the wine, they that go to seek mixed wine. Look not thou upon the wine when it is red, when it giveth his color in the cup, when it moveth itself aright. It's even a problem looking at the wine in the glass for some people. And the last, it biteth like a serpent and stingeth like an adder, as I mentioned. Your eyes shall behold strange women, and your heart shall utter perverse things. How many bad decisions have been made over drinking wine, beer, and alcohol? People look back and say, look at the decision I made. So the choice is up to you. And on New Year's Day, look at the origin of New Year's Day, January 1st. Nisan 1 is the beginning of the year according to the word. And this year, it's April 8th. And New Year's Eve contains nothing that's redeemable. It's pagan to the core. In the Northern Hemisphere, it falls in the dead of winter. It began as an addition to Saturnalia, celebrating the sun's rebirth. You can also add pagan fertility rites, human sacrifices. And what is it today? It's an excuse to get drunk and act the fool. And it's important to stay close to him during these holidays. And again, as I mentioned, October 31st, December 25th, January 1st, May 1st are satanic high holy days, again, where he wants to abduct and kill children. What are you doing out in these malls shopping for Uncle Harry? He doesn't need anything. You want to buy more toys and gadgets for your kids who have enough to begin with. It's all an attack by Satan to disrupt and take people's eyes off the relationship of the Father to Jesus, Yahshua, and to focus on what they can do for themselves. And to have this false sense of peace and joy. This message is for anybody who wants to hear and follow it. It's important to stay close to the Father. The trumpet could sound, and he come during this time when people are unawares. That's what he says, to watch. Whenever he comes to be the perfect time, but please surrender everything to the Father, get into his word, get everything that has pagan roots out of your life. So it's important to stay close to him, get ready, make sure you're on that sanctification process where he has access to you every day of the week to make you more and more like Yahshua. As I mentioned on every podcast, this is a pro-life ministry. We believe that life begins at conception. Every podcast I pray for the babies in the womb. Remember, around 18 days, the babies in the womb, their heart begins to beat. And around 4 months, their hearts are pumping about 25 quarts of blood per day. I'm going to pray for the babies in the womb right now. If you want to join with me, Father, I ask you to touch the babies in the womb, bring them to a full birth, Father. And Father, we give you all the praise and the honor, Father, in the mighty name of Yahshua, by the blood of Yahshua. And if any of you out there had an abortion, repent, ask the Father to forgive you, and go on and follow him into purpose and destiny, and don't look back. Also in every podcast, I mentioned that if your flesh is giving you any impure thoughts, any worried, fearful thoughts, any thoughts that are not from the Father, just say out loud, say, I thank you, Yahshua, for the crown of thorns around your head. That was for me. That means my mind is protected by your blood. I only think your thoughts, and give those thoughts to the Father. So again, be watchful, be careful during the season. Every day be watching for his return. We don't know when he's going to come back, but we do know we need to be ready. In this season, so many people are out doing other things other than what the Father wants them to do through Jesus, Yahshua. We can't do what the world is doing. We have to be in the world, but not of the world. So if you enjoy these podcasts, tell other people about these podcasts, share, subscribe, hit the like button, and remember to next time. This is Evangelist Henry Walker saying, greater is the Father in you, your daddy, the King of the universe, than anything or anybody in the world.